We have a new version for Flutter and Dart. Flutter 3.22 and Dart 3.4 has just released yesterday in Google I/O. So in this video, we are going to take a look at the details and see what is changed. Stay with me. Hi there, this is Iman Neo. Welcome to my channel. So in this channel, we talk about technical things and mostly related to Flutter and game development. And in this video, we are going to take a look at the releases that we have for Flutter and Dart. So this video is going to be in 3 parts. The first part, I'm going to talk about the overview of both Flutter and Dart changes. The second part, I'm going to talk about the Flutter itself, specifically Flutter changelog, and the third part, I'm going to talk about the Dart changelog. So in the second and in the third part, I'm going to talk about the details. But if you want to have an overview, the first part is enough. So let's see what we have here. We have a Medium article. I will put the link into the description. And it's an overview over the Flutter 3.22 and Dart 3.4. And it is introduced in Google I/O 2024. And yeah, so the first paragraph that caught my eye is this one. It says that we remain committed to providing a strong language and framework. So I think it's a response to the recent false news that we had in the social media. People started to saying that, oh, Google is going to kill the Flutter and these kind of things. And yeah, I think it's a response to those false news. And yeah, in the next section, it says that Flutter developers are busy launching large new apps into the stores. And so we have some samples that big companies are using Flutter. For example, there's a financial institution in United Kingdom called Virgin Money is using Flutter. You can read their article. They explain what is their goal, why they use Flutter, and the solution. So yeah, I'm not going to read it, but I will put a link into the description. You can read about it. And the next one is insurance company in US that they recently shared that they are using Flutter. And again, it's a long article that you can take a look. They explained everything, why they use Flutter. And the other one is Studio. So it's a video about them. They started using Flutter. And other than that, we have Canonical team, which is the team behind the Ubuntu, and they are using Flutter since 2021. So you can read their article. They are using Flutter for their installer, if you don't know. Yeah, so the other one is LG, and they are using Flutter for their smart TVs. Yeah, so I think in the beginning of the article, they wanted to say that Flutter is going strong and it's live, so you don't need to be worried about anything. And yeah, the next part is about the WebAssembly, and today we have a stable release for WebAssembly. So WASM in short, if you don't know what is it, it's an alternative to JavaScript. So you can build a web application using JavaScript or WebAssembly. So WebAssembly has more performance, so you can compile your Flutter application to WebAssembly. For example, you can take a look at this documentation. It says how can you do that. You just need to run Flutter build web -- wasm. So they say that it's twice faster in the Wondrous application and 3 times faster in worst case performance scenarios. Yeah, it's a big change to the web development of Flutter. The apps are going to be faster and smoother on the web. If you are using web, I suggest you to try the WASM or WebAssembly for the web part. And yeah, this is a compared version. The left one is the JavaScript, the right one is the WASM or WebAssembly. You see that the right one is smoother. Okay, the next part is Dart macros. So in my opinion, macros is a revolution in Dart language. So it can open a lot of new doors to the language. And simply it says that macros are code that creates more code. So it's like a code generation, I would say, except the macros is built into the Dart and happens in real time. So it means that you don't have to run any command to generate the code. It runs under the hood when you're writing the code. There's an example here. For example, you can add an annotation, JSON codable, and when you add this annotation, it creates two JSON and from JSON functions for your entity or for your class, and it generates some code under the hood when you are typing, so you don't need to run anything and you don't need to wait. For example, here you don't have the to JSON yet, and when you add the annotation, for example, JSON codable, and if you try to call .toJSON, it has the function, and if you open the details, you see that it created an augmented class that contains from JSON and to JSON. And yeah, so it's a revolution. You can do a lot of things. For example, you can have data classes after that, and maybe we have some annotations to generate protos to use in gRPC. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what we are going to have using macros in the Dart. And yeah, you can take a look at the JSON codable macros here. It explained how can you enable this feature because it is experimental yet, and after that you can just add the annotation and it creates the from JSON and to JSON for you under the hood. So here they say that they are going to add data classes after that. It is the highest voted Dart language feature, and if you see, data class is the highest voted issue or feature request in the Dart language GitHub. And yeah, so the next thing is about the games. I'm really happy that they are investing on the game development part, and they shared that some industry leaders like Ethermax and Supercell are using Flutter. So you can take a look at these documentations. They explain why they use Flutter and what is their goal. This is for Supercell, and I will put the links into the description. You can take a look. And we have some new things here. The first one is Solout game engine. So it allows you to do a lot of things with audio in your game, and it has better performance for the sound effects, for the background music, rather than the audio player that we have. So you can use it. And the other thing is a Google Code Labs. So it teaches you how can you build a word puzzle game with Flutter. You can take a look. And yeah, this one says how can you optimize the Flutter for web loading. You can take a look at the article. And yeah, the next one is a challenge. So we had Global Gamers Challenge. You had to build a game using Flutter. And today they announced the 10 winners of the challenge. You can take a look. I will put the link into the description. So yeah, these are the winners. This one. These are some games that made with Flutter. And yeah, after that we have some bullet points, and then we are done. So these bullet points are some overviews of the changes, and then I'm going to talk about the details in the second part and in the third part of this video. And the first one says that we have Vertex AI for Firebase Dart SDK. So you can use Gemini API in your app, in your Flutter or in your Dart app. And the next one is Impler. So it's now feature complete on Android. And the next one is Android's predictive back. So it's a new gesture that is introduced in Android, and we have this in Flutter. It's like when you open a page and when you want to swipe back, you see the behind screen or behind activity that you have. Yeah, you see. When you swipe back, you see the behind page or behind activity. And the next one is platform views. So we have some improvements on the platform views. For example, Google Map, that is not a Flutter widget. It's a native view that is rendered into the Flutter, and the performance is increased. The other one is that we have some changes on Google Mobile Ads SDK, and they support more partners. And after that, we have some changes on DevTools. So we have a new deep link validator that you can validate or troubleshoot your deep link in the DevTools. And the other one is that you can use Dartfix to migrate your code base to the new changes. And the other one is a feature that you can filter the CPU samples in the timeline in DevTools. Yeah, we are done with the overview of the releases for Flutter and Dart version. And in the next part, I'm going to take a look at the details of Flutter changes. Okay, now we are in the article that is about the details of Flutter changes. I will put a link into the description. And yeah, here they explained about the WebAssembly. So it is available on the Stable channel. You can check it out. And yeah, it is twice faster on average and 3 times faster in worst case scenarios. You can build your web application using WASM. And yeah, you can take a look at these articles. It says how can you enable WASM or WebAssembly in your project. And the next part, they talk about the engine itself. So they introduced some updates to Impler and it is completed on Android using the Vulkan backend. So if you don't know what is Vulkan backend or what is Impler, I'm going to explain them shortly. So simply we have Vulkan, we have OpenGL, and also we have Metal in iOS that they work directly with the GPU or the graphical card. And on top of that, we have Impler, which is an abstraction over these backends. And it has to work with the different backends to be able to work with the different hardwares. So in this case, they say that Impler supports Vulkan for Android and Metal for iOS, and they are going to work on the OpenGL after that. So remember the chart, we have Impler, and before that we had Skia, and so they changed the Skia to Impler because it has better performance for the Flutter applications. And yeah, so the next part, they say that they improved the blur performance. So if you blurred something in your application, you can update your Flutter to have the better performance. And it says it is 50% better than before. And yeah, you can take a look at the chart. And also we have an important update on the Impler itself. So it works on both iOS and Android. As I said, it's a wrapper or it's an abstraction over the backend APIs that we have, for example, Vulkan and Metal in iOS. So it uses a new rendering strategy called stencil then cover. It's a new approach. And yeah, it solves the issue with the raster thread that is spending too much time. For example, here you see that it's overwhelmed, but here it works faster. So it's a technique that helps you to have better performance for complicated paths that you have for your shape. So it works smoother for the animations that you have. And in the next step, we have framework changes. So material state is moved outside of the material library and it is renamed to widget state to be able to use in Cupertino widgets. So it's not related to material anymore and it's just a general widget that you can use in your Cupertino app. And it is just an enum. If you take a look, you see that it says it is deprecated, material state, and you have to use widget state. It's just an enum with these values: hovered, focused, pressed, and it's for example, for buttons. When you interact with a button, you have a state. And here we have some enhancement on the dynamic view sizing, and it's for when you have responsive layouts. And after that, we have some improvements on the form validations. And here we have some performance enhancement for the typecasts in 2D graphics. And after that, there is an important change. We have flavor conditional asset bundling. So what does it mean? If you open the documentation, you see that you can define different asset directories for your flavors. So suppose that you have a free flavor for your app and also you have a premium flavor for your app. So you can define different asset directories for different flavors. So this way, for example, premium users will see these assets and free users will see these assets. And yeah, it's very handy when you want to have different assets for different flavors. It's simple. And the next one is an interesting thing. So you can configure your package to transform assets when they are bundled. So if you open this link, you can see that there's a new concept called transformers. So you can transform your assets into something else when you run the app or when you build the app. For example, this package just optimizes your SVG files when you run the app or when you build the app. Or you can, for example, use PNG optimizer. So it optimizes the PNG that you have here when you run the app or when you build the app. And I like this new concept. Maybe we can have a transformer that generates different size of the assets for different screen size. So instead of defining them separately in the assets directory, you can define the largest size. So you can have a transformer and it transforms the largest asset for the smaller devices that you have. And the other one is about the deep links. They improved it in the Android, and as I said, we have a deep link validator in the DevTools. So you can open the DevTools and you can validate your deep link. So the next one is predictive back gesture on Android. So as you see, there's a new gesture in Android, and when you swipe back, you see the behind screen that you are going to see. So they integrated this feature into the Flutter and you can use it. And the next thing is version requirement for Gradle in the Android, for Gradle, AGP, Java, and Kotlin. So there are new restrictions when you run your Flutter in Android. You have to support these versions or newer versions. At the moment, it shows a warning if you try to use a version that is older than these versions. And in the next release, it's going to be error instead of warning. So try to update your Gradle, AGP, Java, and Kotlin version to these versions to not have the error in the next release. And yeah, so the next one is the support for Kotlin DSL in Gradle instead of the old Groovy DSL. So this support allows us to have better code experience for the Gradle. We have auto completion and we have access to the documentation. And yeah, I think it's good for plugin owners to update their Gradle to use DSL instead of Groovy. And the next one is some platform view improvements. So sometimes we use platform views instead of Flutter views, for example, when we have a map. So in this case, we don't have a Flutter implementation of the map. We just use the native implementation for iOS and for Android, and we just show them in the Flutter widget tree as a platform view. So we have some improvements on them. And yeah, so after that, we see that KitKat or Android API 19 is not supported anymore. So the new minimum supported version is Lollipop and API 21. So if you support Android 19, you need to upgrade it to Android 21. And for iOS, again, we have some platform views performance improvements. You can see the chart. We have, this is before the blue line and the red line is after. You see that we have some optimization on the iOS platform views. And after that, we have a new SDK, Vertex AI for Firebase Dart SDK. So it is in preview. You can take a look. You can integrate AI into your application. And the point is that it uses app check by default. So if you don't know what app check is, it's a method to have a secure connection between the mobile app and in the backend. So it works like that. It generates a secure header and your backend validates the header that is sent by the client. And the header is not something static. It changes over the time. And only your app can access to the API because it generates the header and the backend validates the header and everything is good. And if someone finds your API and tries to use it, it doesn't work because backend needs to validate the app check header. So it's a security thing that is applied by default. And we have some updates on the DevTools. We have some updates on the DevTools extensions and DevTools app shared packages. So DevTools extension is a package that you can use to implement your own extension in the DevTools. For example, I'm pretty sure that block library has an extension so you can see the properties of your blocks and your qubits in the DevTools using the extension that they created. So you can use this package or this library to create your own extension. And also you have DevTools app shared. So this is some shared UIs, utilities, and this kind of things that you need to integrate with the DevTools. So they have some improvements on these packages. And we have some updates on the Google Mobile Ads SDK. So they added some new partners. For example, you can have Unity Ads. It's here. You can integrate Unity ads into your Flutter application. And yeah, so here we have some breaking changes. For example, in the color scheme.FromSeed, you can provide a dynamic scheme variant, which can be a fidelity or content, and it changes the color theme that is generated using this function. And they remove the version 1 of Android embedding. So if you are a plugin developer or if you used Android embedding in your application and it uses V1, you need to take a look at this migration guide and update it to V2. And yeah, here you can find a full list of breaking changes, so you can use Dartfix to fix them. Okay, now we are done with the Flutter details, and let's continue to the Dart details here. In the Dart 3.4, we have some new updates. So we have complete support for WASM or WebAssembly for Flutter apps. And the next goal is to enable the support for WASM in pure Dart apps. So at the moment, it only works on Flutter. And in the next release or in the next step, they are going to enable the full support for pure Dart apps. And here we have macros, as I said in the Flutter section. In my opinion, macros is a revolution in the Dart language. It opens a lot of new doors to the developers and to the language itself. So it's like a code generation, I would say, but it runs immediately when you change something in the code. And it's faster and it's performant. And the sample that they provided is the JSON codable. Before that, we had JSON serializable, so you had to add this line of code and also add this annotation and run a command, which is this one, to generate the code for your toJSON and FromJSON functions. But now with the macros, you can just use it, and when you add the annotation of JSON codable, it runs on the background immediately and it generates the FromJSON and toJSON functions for you. For example, if you take a look at the GIF here, you see that at first we don't have the toJSON function for this vehicle class. And when you add the annotation, when you add the JSON codable annotation, it has the toJSON and FromJSON functions and it runs immediately under the hood. And when you open the details, you see that it's an augment class and it generated the FromJSON and toJSON for you. Yeah, the point is that it runs very fast and it's super useful. And yeah, so the next goal is to have data classes for the Dart, and it is highest voted Dart language feature that is requested by people. And with these macros, we can have data classes for the entities or for the objects that you have. One important thing about the Dart team that I really liked is that they listened to the opinions and they realized that there are different opinions on the data classes. Should the fields be immutable? Should it support equals? What about hash code? What about toString? And because there are different approaches for supporting all the things that we have in the data class, they come up with the solution to implement the macro system, and this way you can implement your own macro. For example, you can implement your own macro to only implement the toString. You can implement your macro to handle all of them. You can implement your macro to only have the immutable fields. And so this way you can cover all the opinions that people have, and I think this is the best approach to listen to the community and find a solution that works perfectly for everyone. And yeah, this is the power of open source. And they continued about that the JSON codable is available as a preview, so you can get familiar with it. And if everything goes well, they will graduate the JSON codable in the next stable release of the Flutter. And they are working on completing the design and the implementation of underlying layer of the macros. And after that, when they feel confident, they will release it as a stable and as a production ready. And they have also other improvements. They are minor improvements in my opinion, and we are done. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and see you in the next video. Bye.